Hi, I'm Gene Anderson. Today it's my pleasure to interview Donna Frawley. We call it Over the Garden Fence. That title captures the spirit of our interview. Let's start. Donna, when did you move to Midland and how did we meet?
My husband and I moved to Midland October of 1977. And the moving van was unloading our stuff and put our canoe on the front lawn. You came home from work, saw the canoe, got out of your car, came over to welcome us to Midland and said, "You are my kind of people." And then you asked us where we were from, and we said Minnesota, and you said, "Me too, this is a great start."
Yeah, it was. Now, many viewers will perhaps remember you as a vendor at the farmer's market. It was down by the Tridge. When did you first go to the farmer's market?
You and I went. You invited me to go. And you had invited Niall and I for dinner and said, let's go to the farmer's market, see if they have something that we can have for dinner. And so we left. And you said, now when you go around, you have to look at what's available, make sure that who has what, and what's the best price.
Yeah, of course, we're frugal.
and so we walked around, circle, and then the second circle to pick up our things. Some of the vendors had strawberries, so I said, I'll make strawberry shortcake for dessert. And you said something about a 24 ingredient salad, and
yeah,
I
so
didn't know
what
what
do you
that
recall?
meant.
Yeah, do you recall what we had for dinner?
Yes.
Okay, tell me.
Yes.
Okay.
We had the 24 ingredient salad,
Yeah.
and I asked you to explain that. And you said, well, each lettuce, different variety of lettuce, and each herb, and each vegetable counts as one. Thus, 24 ingredient salad. And then you made barbecue chicken on the grill,
Okay.
which was delicious, by the way.
Oh,
And I realized that you were a good cook and that you enjoyed it. And I thought, there is another passion that we share in common.
all right. When you came for dinner, I think you were pregnant with your first child. The next year, I came to your house for Sabrina's first birthday. That was a rather unique party. Tell us about that.
Well, as a new mom, I did a lot of reading. And one of the books that I was reading said, you should, so you don't overwhelm the child, you should have one guest for every year-old that the child is. 1-year-old birthday, one guest, you were it. And it was a wonderful party.
Shortly after that, I moved away, but I didn't tell you at that birthday party.
No, you didn't want to spoil the festivities, so you told me later, and then you gave me custody of your seed box.
I remember handing that to you over the garden fence. I was moving to Switzerland on a Dow Chemical assignment. I would be living in an apartment, so I couldn't grow a garden. I thought you might be able to use my seeds. What did you do with them?
Well, I'm very frugal and adventuresome, so I planted the 23 varieties of herbs that were in that box, not knowing most of them. And then I needed to read about it and discover how to grow them and what to use them for.
But you did have a garden, so you were already a gardener.
Yes. When I came to Midland, I went to the Newcomers Club, and we discovered that quite a few of us were interested in learning more about gardening. So we formed the Evergreen Garden Club and went from there.
All right. And then did you talk to the garden club?
Well, at the first meeting, they asked for volunteers to speak on a topic that they were interested in.
Okay.
And I raised my hand because I knew that was the incentive that I needed in order to learn about all of these herbs that I had just planted. So I gave that presentation. It went really well. And afterwards, one of the members came up to me and asked me to speak to her church women's group on herbs of the Bible. So then I had to do additional research, which I found very interesting as well.
So that was your debut into the speaking business about herbs, really?
It was. And I have spoken all over America and even in Canada. So I guess I'm an international speaker, so don't you agree?
I hope they do. Well, back to the farmer's market. What got you started there?
Laura Lalonde was in this garden club that we formed, and she said, you know, Donna, you know a lot about herbs. You should go down to the farmer's market and sell some fresh cut herbs and some plants, and I think you do well down there.
Was Laura Lalonde the owner of Lalonde's Market in Midland?
She and Steve, her husband, owned the market, yes.
Okay, and so what else did you sell at your little stand then? Or what do you call it, a booth or what?
Either.
A booth, at your
Yeah,
booth. What do you,
yeah.
So you sold
I
herbs?
sold fresh herbs and plants, and then as the season progressed, then I added mixes to the...
Excuse me, what are mixes?
Well, they're little packets with a variety of herbs in them, and they're used to mix with a few other ingredients to come up with a dish. And because we live in Michigan and the winters here don't allow us to grow fresh outside, we have to have a flavorful substitute. So herb mixes are the ticket. And I called myself the creator of convenient flavor.
Okay.
And with anything, it took some practice to get the mixes to how I wanted them, and I had to write everything down, keep track of the ingredients. And my motto for life is the Betty Crocker's test kitchen. And in a test kitchen, they try something. If it doesn't work, make some changes and try again. They never give up. And so with these mixes, I would mix them up, keep track of what I put in, taste them. If they needed tweaking, then I changed one thing at a time and got them until it was the way that I wanted it.
All right, now let's go back to the farmer's market. When did you launch your business there, and what did your booth look like?
I began in June of 1983,
Okay.
and my booth was just a card table that first year, but I had a gingham check tablecloth and an apron.
Oh, show and tell. Good.
Show and tell, yes. And although my name at the time was the Parsley Patch Herbery, it later changed, but I counted cross-stitched this between the time that Laura suggested I go down to the market and that next Saturday when I was there, because everybody has to have a counted cross-stitch logo.
Oh, is that right? Now, you've kind of raised the bar on booth displays at the farmer's market. In brief, you led by example. I remember the lady at the booth next to you. They came from Ludington, I think, and they had cherries, and she had an apron that had cherries on it. Then, so what happened to that? Because...
Well, when peach season started, she was still wearing her cherry apron. So I went to the fabric store, bought her peach fabric, and brought it down to her at the market. The next market day, she had a freshly sewn peach apron to wear during peach season.
Yes, leading by example and making a difference. Little things make all, that's all it takes. How many years did you have a booth at the farmer's market?
It wasn't 32 consecutive years, so I was there for 26 years. I took 6 years off, kind of in the middle, to raise my 3 young daughters.
Okay, and they came down there and helped you?
As they grew up, then we went back, and they came down and helped me. They learned how to deal with customers, how to sell products, and Veronica, the youngest, even learned how to make change. She did math, she did not get it, and all of a sudden, The light was there, and she got it.
Well, she's bright, and she's my goddaughter.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Okay, some more show and tell. Tell us about this book that you have here.
Well, this is one of the books that you gave Veronica when she was 5 years old,
Okay.
called The Very Quiet Cricket.
Okay.
And she
Oh yeah, that's an Eric Carle book, because
Yes.
he wrote series of them, and all were brilliant colors. Show us the
Yes.
colors here. Kids love these books. What's the story behind this one, though? Show us. Show and tell. Yeah,
Lots of good
there's the cricket.
good,
Yeah.
colorful.
Okay.
She and I were outside, and we heard a live cricket do its little chirp.
Okay.
And we got closer, like they do, then they stop.
Yeah.
And I whispered to her, Veronica, go up and get your cricket book. So she ran upstairs, came back down. We sat very still, and the live cricket started chirping again because we were quiet.
So
And
there's
then
a
we
chip
opened
in there.
There's a chip in here. We opened the book, and the real cricket and the chip cricket were talking back and forth to each other.
So one would answer the other, huh?
Back and forth. It was wonderful. And that interactive motif just made a real difference in her life, just that she could use books for such a positive way.
Yeah, I wanted to hook her on books is what
Yeah,
I was after.
exactly.
But, okay, okay, back to the farmer's market. There you continued by leading by example, and especially for customers. You taught them how to use and appreciate herbs. You encouraged them to make home cooking more pleasurable and a lot more delicious.
Well, when I got the herb seeds from you and realized that I didn't know anything about them, I figured that some of the people down there didn't either. And so I had samples for them and recipes to go along with them, and so they would bring them home. One day a couple came up to me and they said, we have a pork roast at home, do you have any suggestions? And I sold them the herbs. They came back the next week and they said, that was the best pork roast we ever had. What do you have for a beef roast? So, I was educating them, encouraging them to cook at home, and reinforcing their successes.
Yeah, because you go to the farmer's market and so you go to the broccoli booth. Nobody tells you how to cook broccoli. You're supposed to know that. So, but they don't know how to use herbs. So you educated.
I did.
And taught people how to appreciate and cook these things. When was your last year to sell at the farmer's market, and what did you do after that?
My last season was in 2015.
Okay.
And I still was doing my holiday open house. And we'd take over the house and turn it into a 5-room shop and have 50 feet of food samples for people to try, both hot and cold. We had soups and appetizers, all sorts of things. And when COVID hit, that shut everything down, and realized that I was getting older and the hard work of putting together an open house was a little bit too much, and so I stopped doing that.
So you stopped doing it. But you started that whole model down at the farmer's market, because I don't think you mentioned, but you had samples down there for them to try.
Every week I would have samples either using my mixes or fresh herbs. And one time I had tomato salad, and I had sold all of the bunches of herbs that I used on the tomato salad, and a lady said, well, that's really good. And I said, well, I sold out of the herbs, and she pointed to my cutting board and said, well, what are those? And she bought them right off of my cutting board to go home and make tomato salad at her house.
That's making a difference.
That's right. And I gave her the recipe, and that was what I did. I just shared recipes. And I had a big box, and if somebody said, do you have a recipe for thus and so, I would look through the box, find the sheet that had that recipe on it, and hand it to them. So.
So you had a customer base that would come back again and again to say, what do you got this time?
Week. Yes.
Yeah.
And some just came to eat the samples, and that was okay too.
Yeah. Well, a change of subject then, because you don't do the open house anymore. But change of subject. You've done a column in the Midland Daily News for many years. When did you start doing a column, and has it changed over the years?
In October of 2002, I wrote my first article, and I've been writing one ever since. And
2002?
2002.
For
Once a
20
month.
years.
Yeah. And last year they approached me, instead of just doing an article, they wanted me to change it into a feature. And so that required that I make all of the recipes so I can take photos of them and send in the photos in color and the recipes. And so it was, a bigger spread. And it took a little bit more work, but it's fun.
But it's a monthly feature.
It's a monthly feature on a weekend.
And you get a full page.
And then some.
And then some
sometime.
overlaps, because sometimes
Yes.
you can't confine yourself to space, right?
That's true.
Yeah. I've seen you before. Okay. Okay. You also do a weekly e-zine. I don't know what you call them, an e-zine newsletter.
E-newsletter.
E-newsletter. An e-newsletter. When did you start that?
That was about 5.5 years ago.
Okay.
And in that, I had it chock full of recipes, or how to grow a particular herb or a variety, or concentrated on maybe Mexican food or Italian food.
Yeah, that's a weekly, isn't it? Every week.
Every Wednesday at 8 o'clock in the morning it comes out.
It hits my day. Yeah. Yeah.
And I also write a monthly article for the magazine Midland Neighbors.
Oh, I don't get that one, but okay. I read too much anyway. I got too many things. Okay, so, well, you're obviously still busy and still making a difference. So it's time for us to conclude our interview, Donna. What final thoughts do you have?
Well, today we talked about gardening and friendship, and actually those two have something in common. They both need to be nurtured in order to grow. And we have known each other for 46 years, and over those years, our friendship and our plants in the garden have both grown, and have made a difference and still are making a difference in each other's lives.
Well spoken, Donna. Well, I want to thank our visitors for listening to Donna's story. I'm Gene Anderson, and I've had fun helping Donna share her story with you.
Thanks, Gene. I had fun too.
Good.